even more insane thing. So to talk about that specifically, when you first read that in the script, how did you react to that?
I remember where we were when we heard that. Brandon and I actually didn't even have script in hand. It was our first day
Wow.
on set. It was while we were in Korea. It was freezing cold, and we were, in the middle of the work. And John, Josh, and Hayden come up to us, and they're like, "Okay, so here's the story. You're gonna die." To Brandon, and I remember
Ah,
Brandon, like they would give me pieces of the story, and they give Brandon pieces of the story, and the two of us would start, like, connecting, being like, "Dude, how does this story fit?" Like, we'd be exchanging, like, "Did they tell you this? No, they didn't tell me that. Wait, where did he leave off of?" And so we,
yeah.
like, pieced it together in between shots, and we're like, "Oh my god, man, like, you're gonna have this, like, iconic, but also, like, the single most, like, tragic event in
Right.
Cobra Kai, like, the Miyagi-verse, like,
Mm,
history. Like, we've never seen anything like this on camera happening in the moment. It's not a flashback, it's not like a rumor, it
mm,
happens on the day, in the moment, with characters we know and we love. And, I think for me, it was like imagining that and how impactful that was gonna be, and then on the day, seeing Ralph, like, come up next to this boy who's been
wow.
killed, and then me as his teammate getting to stand and see him. It was like it was both, like, really celebratory because we got to say, like, goodbye to Brandon and Quan and that amazing work that he'd done
Mm,
for us as friends, but it was also, like, deeply sad because we were like, "Oh my
yeah.
god, we're ending shooting, like, we're gonna be done here in Atlanta. We're gonna say goodbye to this story and this cast that we've all become friends," and, so there was, like, a real level of tragedy for even as short as it was. It's like, dude, as a story moment, as a personal moment, I was like, "Man, that thing was, like, what an incredible moment for fans, for us," and yeah, it wa
Mm.
it was I was crying. I'm a big old
I'm not
softie. I was
surprised.
crying. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Brandon was telling me about that day, like how it was pretty funny in the sense of not the character dying, of course,
Oh,
but the
for him?
the but the fact like he said he had this moment to like I think Jacob started going speech, 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 and like everybody sort of like was taking photos with him on the floor, like getting their
Yeah.
moments because it's like something you've never seen in the show, but like
With just, like, blood all over and
yeah,
yeah,
just like
the knife sticking out of
posing.
him.
Yeah, because Brian was telling me like because obviously he had to play dead on screen, so like he said there was times where he
Mhm.
generally felt like he was dead, like legit. He had to stay like so still and stuff. That must be so like uncomfortable to do, right?
It's so funny. The guy's just like, "Is this what it's like?" He's just having, like, an existential crisis while everyone is like, "Camera rolling and action." That's awesome.
I hope we see that addressed in part three. Is like how does this affect Sensei Kim as as a sensei? Like she feels that responsibility that one of my students has died, but again, you could also this whole thing with the brawl is pretty much Kreese's fault. He brought Eun Jung Do
Mhm.
to his intention was to go and pretty much kill Silva, but in the moment, obviously, like Kwon, he's so annoyed with Axel. He wants to be the best there, right? And with the
Yeah.
way Kwon is, he doesn't want anyone beating him, being better than him, or having a better chance of winning the tournament.
Yeah, yeah.
Yoon was in that same moment, and he saw Eun Jung Do, and he was getting, like kicked into a camera, and he was on rage and fury, against Axel. Do you think
Mhm,
Yoon
mhm,
would have done
mhm.
the same thing? Or the thing with Yoon, it's a little bit different. Like he might have gone, "There's a knife there," but would he have kicked it away, or would that have been like him going, "Okay, we need to stop this
Oh,
right now"?
man. That's a really good question. I actually haven't thought about that. I don't know, just in the moment, I think knowing Yoon, that's for him, that's a step too
Too
far,
far, yeah.
Like, he plays dirty, but, like, to kill somebody, that's not Yoon. All I'll say is, like, there's a reason why Kreese ended up picking Quan as his ultimate weapon
Yeah.
instead of Yoon. And I think the difference between Quan and Yoon, there's obviously a skill gap, a little bit of a skill gap, but I think the main thing is like Quan has that killer instinct, that anger, that rage that Kreese wanted to direct. But with a knife in hand, I think it's a little more than what Kreese expected. And certainly he didn't
Mm.
expect his star student to become his like first victim. So I'm super excited to see where part three might go and what happens with Cobra Kai from there on out. I think Kreese has a lot to grapple with. Kim Taeun, has a lot to grapple with, and I,
Mm,
as Yoon, have a lot to grapple with. So, yeah, it's a pretty crazy moment to leave the story on,
right.
and definitely the biggest cliffhanger we've had so far.
I 100% agree. Like Cobra Kai's Endgame, as impactful as
Mhm.
like the OG films. It's literally like got that legacy now, and definitely be interesting how it's gonna affect Kim Daeun with her students like Yoon. How does he feel about martial arts and karate as a whole? Like, he's a
Yeah.
very honorable guy. You wouldn't expect him to ever consider anything like this is an acceptable thing, going to that length with a knife. But obviously,
Yeah.
no one is actually seeing how it's happened. They just see him being stabbed. So, like, again, like, are they theorizing someone? Like, that's what I'm also curious
But
about. Like,
it's also like for me, right, as Yoon, it's like, this guy's my rival. This like more than anybody else, right? What I'm trying to prove is one day, like, is to get to the level where we're on the same level, him and me, right?
mm,
And then this guy who's my rival, who becomes my friend, right? Who becomes my like compatriot, my partner, right, as a fighting partner. And before I have a chance to really do that, he's gone.
mm,
Like, that's a lot to grapple with. Have a friend,
right.
have a teammate gone, like, it's pretty crazy, you know? So, I'm so stoked to see what happens in part 3
Same.
because there's a lot of these, like, gigantic threads that are now like, "How is this all gonna wrap
Right.
up?" But we can kinda see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think after that moment, I think people will be like, "Oh, wow, this is the final season." Like, I think that's, like, the moment where it all
Mm.
kinda sinks in.